Because like you said, Moshe, if they're on the phone with you, right, it doesn't get like a better opportunity to turn them into a client because, well, that's your time. They chose you. And so making sure that the technology that you're using, whether that's, web chat, these other agents that we're talking about, or something else, really the goal is just to make sure that we're connecting people with, looking for help and service providers, lawyers that can help them, without the headache that a lot of people are used to.
Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I'm super stoked for the conversation today because I got to meet our guest in a initial intro convo and learn a little bit more about what this business is doing, and it is mind-blowing. I mean, the truth is that people have wised up to AI and what AI can do, but everyone's like, okay, well, how am I going to put that into use in my business? Like, where does that fit in? And then we have the horror stories of somebody who used AI to draft a legal document and it cited case law that didn't exist or was made up, stuff like that. So yeah, if you're using this to actually provide your legal service, then you definitely want to do your due diligence and make sure that what it's spitting out at you is actually true, or useful in the way that you're trying to use it. But I was blown away by. I recently was on it was more like a sales pitch, and I ended up buying the product. And my friend Ryan Dice over at Digital Marketer, he also wrote the book Scalable, which I give out to all of our elite clients when they become members of our organization. And by the way, if you're interested in exploring a lead, it's where we take solo law firms from being a solo to having an attorney on staff, take you from a couple of 100,000 in revenue to $1 million plus in annual revenue in 12 months. So if that's something you're interested in exploring, go to profitwithlaw.com/strategy session, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. And you'll spend 30 minutes with somebody on our team who will help you map out what that looks like over the next 12 months. Really help you to get clarity around that. And there is no sales pitch on that conversation. It's absolutely free. You walk away with a complete plan of what you need to do. That being said, let's go back to this. So I was in this forum basically where Ryan Dice partnered with a guy by the name of Roland Frazier. Together, they took AI that was available in many different forms to try to replace a lot of the pieces in the business. So they were able to have AI create a full video podcast episode of Ryan doing a podcast because he was out of town. So they're like, all right, let's give this a whirl. Let's try this. Basically fed it in a couple of pieces of video of his past episodes, and it took his video, it took his voice, and just created this entire episode from it. Mind-blowing stuff. They also had they have outbound sales agents, so they do acquisition of businesses and build portfolios out of that. So they do outbound calls and just offer to, have a conversation around what, somebody's interested in selling their business. And they had an AI agent doing that outbound call, and they played the conversation on the webinar, and it was mind-blowing. Like, it sounded like a real person. It sounded like a really well thought out individual having, and the script was phenomenal as far as getting the person who answered the phone like completely on guard, not wanting to have a conversation, and drawing them in to, at the end, being willing to talk to somebody about valuing their business and what their business might be worth. Incredible stuff. So watching that and going through it really started to open my eyes to all the possibilities that we have of implementing AI in our business. And I think the biggest barrier, besides for figuring out like where is the place to implement AI, like what should be the thing that I'm doing, I think the biggest barrier for people is access to it, right? It seems like it's something that is everyone else it's easy for. But for me, I don't even know where to start, and I don't know how to get it. And even if I can, maybe it's very expensive, or the perception is it's going to be very expensive to implement this specific thing that I want. And I think it's important for us to start paying attention because so much is out there that's actually really accessible. And that's why I'm excited about our conversation today. It's going to be with Joe Ruotolo. Joe Ruotolo is the head of marketing at Intaker. Intaker is a legal tech company driving growth through automation, starting as an automated website chat for law firms, and it's well known for that. But Intaker is now evolved into an AI powered platform that helps firms convert more leads, build stronger connections, and take action across channels. He focuses on making enterprise level tools accessible to firms of any size. And I thought that, so my experience of hearing that agent live, on that other that you know that webinar that Roland Frazier and Ryan Dice were doing was so impactful to me. Like, it was so eye-opening. I said, you know what? Why don't I do that on this podcast? So I actually just started a chat conversation. I said hi, texted hi to this number, and it came back and said, "Hi and welcome to Ruotolo Law. My name is Arthur. How can I assist you today?" And I'm going to just carry on this conversation throughout this podcast, and I'll just tell you what the agent is saying. This is an AI powered agent that I am talking to. It's not a real person. Um, I've so I'm gonna put in, I've been injured in an auto accident and want to know if I have a case. Let's see what he says. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Moshe, thank you for having me. And yeah, we're going to do a little show and tell today for some of your guests, but I'm looking forward to getting into this. I know we talked a little bit before we started about just what's happening with AI across all businesses, but I think that, for law firms especially, they're paying attention now because things are changing both on the legal side, kind of the stuff that you mentioned, but also on just like the client facing and even the intake side, right? Because people's expectations of businesses are very different today. It's just almost standard that consumers expect any service provider to be, working faster, working better, getting more done with the tools that are available now. And so I'm excited to get into this, how we're part of that trend.
Awesome. And what I'm going to do is just start with you just telling us a little bit about your journey, how you got into this. Give us the short version. I don't want to take the whole podcast talking about your history, but I'm curious how you got into this realm of automation and AI and working with intakers specifically. But before you start answering that, the response I got is, "I'm sorry to hear about your accident. To help you further, can you please provide your first and last name?" I provided my secret shopper name, Tom West. So it says, "Thank you, Tom West. Is this a good number to reach you, or is there a different callback number you'd prefer?" This number is fine. Go ahead with your response.
All right, we're having two parallel tracks. I'll give you the quick version, Moshe, because I've been with Intaker almost 6 years. We in our company we've finished our seventh year. We started in 2019, I should say, and since then, when I joined in 2020, it's been nothing is the same in the world or in legal, or in tech as it was like, back before COVID. So I actually had a career in education before I transitioned into sales. And so that was my life. That was my whole, that's what I did living in New York. I went to change everything in my life all at once, moved to California, switched careers, got into sales, and it was an elevator ride that everything changed because I started in solar. That was my first sales job. And, within a few months, I realized that I wanted something more. And that's when I met Puya. We were in the elevator ride. I just quit the last day of my job selling solar. And I struck a conversation with him because I just felt great. I felt like I was ready for my next thing. I didn't know what it was yet, but I didn't know I was going to be in the elevator with him. And so Puya is the CEO and co-founder of Intaker. And so we walked around Century City Mall in Los Angeles where the WeWork was, if anyone listening is familiar with LA. And yeah, by the end of that walk, I had got this spark, this fire, this light under me. And I knew that this is going to be my next chapter. Software was something that I knew um, could make a big difference. I never saw myself working with lawyers, but that was the beginning of the journey. And then, fast forward to, COVID, very early on in my intaker career, the world shut down, going remote, working with people who were, really in a panic because every business owner, not sure what's going to happen. So getting to be part of that journey. And also, like, I'm not going to go too long here, but it was also a big part of the product development for Intaker because I know, well, for listeners who don't know, Intaker, we do many things, especially in AI now, but we started in website chat. And so, back then, chats were a little bit more static, and it was in the beginning of COVID in April that year, 2020, that we launched the video feature. Really just because people weren't going into the office, people were not really getting FaceTime with their attorney, and just as a way to make a first impression and create that sense of connection that otherwise would be hard to get, especially if someone is making a decision or just reaching out to a lawyer for the first time. Nowadays, I know video inside web chat is much more standard, but being on the cutting edge back then as a young company, helping do these things that even a few months ago I had no idea about, it was a blessing. And since then, we've grown. We work with over 2,000 law firms now, and just to see the kind of growth in the industry has been kind of surreal. But that kind of takes us to today, where again, a few years ago with ChatGPT, everything changed. AI came about, and now this past month, ChatGPT just hit 1 billion users. And so it's no longer something on the edge. Like this AI is as mainstream as you can get at this point, and it's just going to continue to become a bigger part of our lives and our businesses. And so we'll get into some of those ways that we're bringing AI. I know maybe Moshe has an update on the conversation that he's having with AI right now, and this is one of the AI agents that we'll talk a little bit more about, but specifically for intake and lead capture and things like that. But I'll turn it back to you.
Wow, that's incredible. 15% of the world population is using ChatGPT. I didn't realize that, didn't know that. So that's incredible. And I just had this conversation in the previous podcast recording I did. So folks who haven't been listening to this for a while don't know, but I batch record my episodes. I only record one day a month. And so I have this entire day where all we're doing is having these conversations. So I literally just had a conversation where we were talking about this exact point of AI adoption, and I was talking about, like there's if you think back to like when the smartphone came out, and there were the people who, like, they were the first ones, or even if you remember when cell phones first were invented, right? There were the people who like walked around with an attaché case, and then they were able to be on the phone while they were in motion, or they had a phone in the car. Like a car phone was like a big deal back then. And only the elite or the most tech savvy people had that, and then slowly but surely, like the people started to adopt and take that. Get fast forward to smartphones, similar thing, right? Like how many people just like held on to and swore by their Motorola StarTech for as long as possible before, finally giving it up and going to a smartphone. But now, like, the people who don't have smartphones are the holdouts, right? I have a daughter who, for religious reasons, like has a non-smartphone, and she calls me when she needs a taxi ride. She's like, "Hey, can you get me a lift from this address to this address?" Because her phone can't do it. But most of the population has it. So we go through these phases of like the early adopters, and then it starts to become more accepted and mainstream, and then it's like everybody's got it. And that cycle has accelerated over time, like how long it takes for that to happen. And it's pretty wild because when was it that the first, chat GPT conversation happened? It wasn't that long ago. It was like a couple of years. And now we've got 15% of the world's population is using it. So wild to think about the rapid pace of adoption. But I think that the conversation, that we need to have is really like, okay, what's the lowest hanging fruit for you to get involved in using AI? And I think the best place to look is our client acquisition system, right? It's before you're providing services to the client. Like, how can we use it to do a better job, either to handle a higher quantity of opportunities or to improve the quality of that experience so that we can get more people to the finish line of becoming clients of the firm. And I think that's a great place to look to try to figure out where to put AI in place. And Intaker is like it's one piece of it, but it's amazing what it is. So let's talk about and I don't want this to be an hour promo of Intaker. That's not the point. But what I do want is to talk about is the opportunity. So what's happening on people's websites? Why was there an opportunity for the chat piece? And then how is AI now putting that onto steroids? Like give us the full circle of why this is a need for firms and what is the kind of ROI or what is the lost opportunity of not having this on their website?
All right, I'll try to weave all that together because, where we started in chat and where we are now, with these AI agents, and I'll define that for your listeners too. It is not a linear journey, but there are some elements that really are a through line. And a big one of those is speed to lead. Because when we started in website chat, launching in 2019 for law firms, only about, I forget the number, 10,000 law firm websites at that point were using chat. The number is much bigger now today, but, companies out there were traditional live chat. They were not the fastest, right? So speed was sometimes an issue. And, the conversations did not quite move dynamically. They were a bit more, follow like the same progression. And ultimately, it could have led to like a flat feeling for someone who is reaching out to a company, and the experience that they get is less than stellar on the first impression, right? If they're reaching out through chat. So there was like an obvious way for us to improve that using automation, forgetting about the live agents, and really the goal is getting them in touch with a real person at the firm faster, so that they're not talking to a chat operator who doesn't know anything, about the law firm or their case or any of that. And, we saw a lot of initial success in that. That's how we got to, grow to, serve over 1,000 clients in the first 4 years. And, since then, just the growth has been both on the customer side, but on the product. I'll take this moment to introduce, what I mean, because I've said AI agents a couple times. Microsoft CEO, was saying end of last year that 2025 is the year of agents. And so for listeners who aren't familiar, you think about AI like ChatGPT, and that is really just a chat bot. You type, it responds, and you can have a back and forth, and you can get amazing things done with that. But a tool like that is not taking action. Right. I think one of the things that you alluded to in the beginning, Moshe, was, the system that you watched Roland Frazier and Ryan build that was actually able to make calls, have conversations, and possibly even take action after that call. So that's a good model for what these agents are. They're a system that can not only think and reason things out. I say reason, I'm just work with me here. It's a little bit different than how humans reason. But it can think and it can respond, and then it can take action. So that action could be things like, booking a calendar appointment, making a phone call, sending a text message. There's a lot of different ways, different tools that your team, your live people might be doing things now. A lot of that tedious, repetitive, but important work when it comes to intake, having systems that can automate that part of it. So the end result is that you, the lawyer, and your team getting on the phone, speaking to these clients faster, and with less of the back and forth, less frustration on both sides. That's kind of the power of what these agents are able to provide. And there are so many use cases, right? Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about one or two in detail today, especially if there's anyone listening who has who knows the pain of getting leads of maybe over like forums or web chats. You know, I'm not talking about leads that call you, but getting leads over those secondary channels and then trying to move that to a phone call. You know, sometimes it's easier than others depending on the person, especially if, you know, people are busy. If you wait more than like 5 minutes, I mean, if I'm sure your audience has experienced this, the difference between responding to a lead right away, responding to a lead 10 minutes later or an hour later. You know, sometimes you never hear from them again if you wait too long on that initial touch. So how can we use these agents to really just compress time in the beginning and make sure that whenever someone reaches out, they're not left hanging, that they get a response and actually even perhaps an invitation to connect on the phone if they did not reach out that way initially. So there's a lot there we can unpack, but
Absolutely. And what I want to do is I want to actually set the stage for what this opportunity is, because one of the things that when I'm working with clients is that, you know, they always want to like, oh, but we need to address this because of this issue, right? And then when I say, okay, how much are we having this issue? And they're like, well, we're not having it yet. Right. So, like, part of the conversation is like, okay, are we solving a problem that's real, or is this a problem that's like a figment of our imagination? And it's a potential problem. So let's just back into this real quick before we even go down this road, because I want people to understand what is being lost by not capturing these people who are hitting your website. I'm going to take it back to phone conversation because I think that's going to really set the stage for this. Clio did a study, I think it was 2020 is when they did it, and they contacted 2,000 law firms, secret shopping, basically pretending to be somebody who needs a case, right? And 2,000 law firms. That, I mean, that's a large amount of firms. That's what you said, you're serving 2,000 firms right now, right? Like that's your entire client base. They they reached out to 2,000 firms, and here is the data of the results of their study. 67% of the firms they reached out to did not answer the phone, or did not call back after the first conversation, or did not return the voicemail message left. Two-thirds of the 2,000 sample set, which we can, you know, that was 2020, and answering services have been using that study as their key tool in their marketing arsenal since then. But so Clio does their legal trends report and they publish this. So there's a couple of takeaways. One takeaway is that if I answer the phone and I return calls, then I'm already winning ahead of two-thirds of the competition, right? So that's one takeaway. But the other takeaway is that there's a massive opportunity. There are people who all they want is to get a response, right? Like they're not, you know, so many of my clients think that they're competing against other law firms. The reality is you're not. The reality is that if you answer the phone, you're the only one they're going to talk to. There is so much value in having that first touch point happen and then continuing the communication cycle, because that is what is going to stop somebody from continuing down the Google page to call the next firm or visit the next website. Now, we're in a day and age where people are doing things at times when they're uncomfortable making a phone call. Let's just forget the fact that they're using technology, they're on their phone, they're on their website, right? They still want to have a conversation if they could, but they're doing it when they're in the bathroom. They're doing it when they're putting their kids to bed. They're like, people are doing this at a time. They're doing it in a meeting. They're at work and they're sitting in a meeting and they're like, how do I'm looking for an accident lawyer, right? Or I'm getting divorced and I need to find a divorce attorney. That's when they're on the website. They can't click on your phone number and call you at that time. But they can have an entire conversation while sitting in that boardroom, bored out of their minds, and actually accomplishing something else. So, what happens when somebody visits your website? And I think this is the real opportunity if we look at it, is like, look at your Google Analytics and check how many visitors visit your website every month. Any attorney doing any sort of marketing should be getting at least a couple of thousand visits a month. And then ask yourself, how many times did the phone ring? Or did somebody fill out a web form? How many leads did we get? Chances are it's like 20 or 40 if your traffic was 2,000, right? It's 1%, 2% if you're really good. That's the opportunity. The opportunity is, what if I could take another 1 or 2% of that traffic and get them to converse with our firm? What impact would that have? It would double the potential that you have. And what if it could be more than a 1 or 2% bump? What if we can get it to 5% or 10%? We probably don't need to make all these front end investments we're making to get more people to the website. So that is the conversation that we're having, is like, okay, so if we could, if we could get somebody who's on the website to engage with us, what is the best way to have them engage? And that's where the conversation that Joe just started having with us has to happen. Is, okay, what is the way that they're going to feel like they're actually having a conversation? There needs to be rapid response. There needs to be meaningful response. They need to feel like they're getting somewhere. If somebody doesn't feel like they're getting somewhere, you did the opposite. You push them away. So now, Joe, what does this look like?
Moshe, there's a couple of things that you just said that really got me thinking, and I don't want to forget them. So I just want to go back to what you mentioned, which is, if someone is on your website, right, and maybe, let's say there's someone who, for whatever reason, doesn't like chat. Maybe they just have something against it. Maybe they used it before, had a bad experience, but they really like, SMS. I know for businesses today, sending texts, being able to use that as a channel, not just for clients, but for potential clients as well, has grown. So what if, you have, let's say, the perfect mousetrap for one channel, but nothing on the others? I think that is where you're going to see some of the lowest hanging fruit. If you want to take that number from 1 or 2% to, something much higher, is the different channels that you have available. Obviously, every legal website should have like a sticky phone number somewhere on there, so that if they're on their phone, they don't have to, scroll to the top to hit call, right? So like some of those website UI elements for phone especially are very low hanging fruit. But then things like adding channels like text in addition to web chat, adding things like even, Facebook Messenger, right? Depending on, some of your listeners, and if they're using things like, Facebook ads to target leads, or other channels, right? Having a system that can handle traffic from all of these sources and make sure that something happens that is consistent, that gives like the best first impression, and that can actually move them to an action, right? Because usually when they reach out, the goal isn't just to get their info, it's to get them typically on the phone for a law firm, or maybe book for a consultation if you're in immigration or family law or something like that. But always, getting them speaking to you as soon as possible. It just makes sure that they're not going to go to another firm and keep shopping around. So back to your question, you asked, what does that look like? I would say that for like the modern law firms that are at like the top of their game right now, the people ahead of everyone else, is that they take omni-channel seriously. So it's not just phone, it's not just chat, any of those touch points, even something like local service ads, which I know can be really hit or miss depending on where you're located in your practice area, but creating an experience that across all of these channels makes sure that people, when they respond, when they do that initial outreach, that they get that that care, that empathy, that warmth, but without having to wait, and really get moved to speak to your team if they're qualified, if they're the kind of lead that you want to speak to, as fast as possible. Because like you said, Moshe, if they're on the phone with you, right, it doesn't get like a better opportunity to turn them into a client, because, well, that's your time. They chose you. And so making sure that the technology that you're using, whether that's, web chat, these other agents that we're talking about, or something else, really the goal is just to make sure that we're connecting people with, looking for help and service providers, lawyers that can help them, without the headache that a lot of people are used to and honestly sick of. So I'm not sure if I totally answered your question there, but we can go back to it if you need to.
Yeah, no. We're just I'm watching the clock. We're eating up time here. I just wanted to ask this. So, what is how do we get? What's the magic formula? Like, how do you get people from chat to a phone conversation and do it quickly and make that transition smooth? And you had mentioned that that could be a challenge for people. What's the secret sauce there as far as, really capturing them, in that web chat and then getting them onto the phone?
Cool. Yeah, I'll answer this in a little bit of a story, but highlighting one of those agents, Owen, by the way. We like to give our agents names, so you confuse them for people. I'm kidding. They're not. But one of those things is imagine that you are going to a website looking for help. Maybe it could be, we talked about an accident example before, and so we can go with that. And if you go ahead, you see this website, looks okay, you enter your information into a chat, right? What typically happens is, you might get like a confirmation message, you might get a call back later when someone is, free. If it's a small law firm, typically that's where, resources get maximized. But sometimes like you don't have the bandwidth to call someone back in 60 seconds after they reach out. So, for small law firms, that can be a challenge because sometimes they could go elsewhere if response time isn't quick. But so where something like this AI agent Owen comes in is after that chat, based on if someone fills out information, because with Intaker especially, we like to pre-qualify leads. If we just give someone a name and a phone number, it's not really that useful. Whereas if we know what type of accident it is, the details around it, whether that's statute of limitations, jurisdiction, who's at fault, whatever you need to know, and then being able to run that through a system to qualify that lead. And based on that outcome, let's say that this is someone in your jurisdiction, it's recent, and it sounds like there could be a case there, then having an agent, Owen in this case, reach out to them over text message, over SMS, and I'm talking about in under a minute from when they reach out, saying, hey, so-and-so, thanks for reaching out. Sorry to hear about your incident. Would it help to speak with someone on the phone from our team? And so if they say yes, then this AI agent is actually able to move from a text conversation to now do a warm transfer. And something I want to make clear here is that we're not talking about an AI voice assistant yet. Obviously, these things are coming. But for a lot of law firms, it's really reputation is number one. So we're not pushing people to adopt some of those like voice systems just yet. But what we can do is take that and warm transfer the call. So having Owen be able to ring your law firm, say, hey, so-and-so, Moshe, was in an accident. He wants to speak, can you connect the call? And if the law firm is able to now, say yes and bridge that and speak, then Owen in this case can bridge the call the lead, call the firm, and now those two humans are talking without any, awkward AI voice in the middle. It's just a way for these, people to get help faster, and for firms to, get in touch with the right leads in seconds. And let's say that, for example, that person who Owen reached out to was not available to speak right now, but maybe said either call me later or, call me tonight, or maybe they just don't respond. Then the system, Owen is able to dance with them in that conversation and, find out when is a good time, make a check mark there. So it's, it's in your system to know when to expect it, then follow up before that time to make sure they're still good, and then bridge that call at the right time. And if it's someone that just like doesn't respond, then having these AI agents be able to follow up so that they're not just sitting there waiting for someone who's not going to respond. They can give those gentle nudges and make sure that everyone gets busy, but having a system that can proactively do that follow-up for you without you having to go in there and do anything on the software side, that's really powerful. And that's where we've seen a tool like Owen be able to just help firms take leads that a portion of which they were missing out on before. They got the leads, but they never moved to a phone call, and move more and more of those to actually speak with someone on the phone. That's kind of the real power of it. And so, if that's a problem that any of your listeners are familiar with, then that's kind of, I think, one of the most compelling use cases today that, just wasn't even possible a year ago. So that's kind of what I would recommend.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I'm out of time, so we're gonna rush through the ending here. But uh, what's really impactful is like we're not trying to game anything, right? Like we're just trying to do what we would have a person do if we had somebody sitting there, right? And it's that this AI bot is now filling that role, so we don't need to have a body dedicated to that. They're going to be able to do a better job more efficiently, and it's not replacing anybody in the sales cycle, right? Like it's just moving somebody into that calendar or onto that warm transfer. Love the use case scenario for that, and I think that this is really one of the low hanging fruit opportunities. If you're spending any sort of investment of time or money in marketing and trying to get people to your website, then how do you get them from your website to a phone conversation? If you don't have chat, if you don't have an ability to move somebody from chat to your sales team, or yourself, if you're the salesperson in your business, then that's something that you definitely want to solve. So just to close this out, Joe, if somebody wants to learn more about how to implement this in their business, how to engage your business to do that for them, what's the next steps that they should take?
I would say just go to intaker.com. You can learn more and reach out to us there. That's the easiest way to, get in touch, and someone from our team can guide you through kind of what the product looks like, and see if you are curious to use a tool like this in your business. Then I'd recommend that. And the last thing that I want to mention, Moshe, is that AI is not a silver bullet, right? If you've got big problems in your firm with intake, that I would say address those first before you start to use these AI solutions, because it's not a band-aid. If you don't know where the gaps are in your bucket right now, then this is not going to fix it. It could potentially make it worse. But I would say you can talk with one of our team if you are curious about, is this the right tool for me, or could this help? And we'll be happy to walk you through it. But I want to say thank you for having me today. It's a great time.
Yeah, my pleasure. And sorry it's so short. We got continue the conversation as the technology evolves, and probably just keep having you back as new stuff is happening and changes are made. But this has been really fun for me. I love these conversations, and for me, it's insightful to be able to know what's in the marketplace and be able to understand what possibilities people have, and where the right solutions could come into play for the right people that we're supporting on our side of the business. And speaking of that, folks, if you are a solo looking to grow beyond yourself, go from a couple 100,000 to a million plus in revenue, or from a million to two in annual revenue, you want to double your personal income in the next 12 months, you definitely want to have a conversation with somebody on my team. On top of that, if you're running a business of 2 million plus up to 15 million, and your profit margin is less than 30%, then you definitely want to talk to us about our fractional CFO services. So you can start with a strategy session with somebody on our team, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. One more time, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. All of these links are going to be in the show notes, which are on your podcast player at profitwithlaw.com. And if you're watching on a YouTube channel, it's also in the description here on YouTube. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. This was a great conversation, Joe. I'm sure we'll have you back, but really appreciate you being here and sharing all of this with us. And we're here every single Thursday with another amazing guest interview. So come on back next Thursday. And if you need a reminder, hit that subscribe button in your podcast player or on YouTube. Make sure that you get notified when that episode gets released. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.